Hello, my name is Alvin Curry, and thank you for joining me here today at iChooseMyEconomy.com. So I choose my economy, not the economy of everyone else. I want to give you a little secret. Every dime that you ever make in your life is going to be a wealth for someone else. So I want to talk to you about how you choose your economy and make sure that you are setting aside some of those dimes, at least one or more, to be a wealth for you and your family. So this is the fourth part of a series we've been talking on, success strategies versus wealth strategies. Now, if you go back and look at the videos that was prior to this, you will be able to get all of it and get caught up on all of this. But in this session, I'm going to compare what success strategies has done to people like my family and what wealth strategies have done to people like me and other people in this world. Okay, let's take a look at something. I am, and I'm just gonna start with me, and then I'm gonna say my father, and his father. So I will be four generations from my great grandfather. Now I did not know my great grandfather. I didn't even know my grandfather. But I know that they went out and they worked as hard as they could to provide for their families and do the best they could. They taught their children to get a good job, work hard, keep your nose clean. Now, don't you think about something? The first generation, let's call it a 40-year fight. My great grandfather worked all of his life. When he died broke. He didn't have very much to pass on to his family. So his family, his son, my grandfather, started over. And he worked as hard as he could all of his life. And when he died, he didn't have anything very much to pass on to his children. Well, my father, who had a little bit better education, he worked all of his life. He was a brick mason and builder. He built houses, brick houses. He had a job. We had a farm that he purchased, and we had plenty of food to eat. So I don't know how well his father did, because again, I didn't know him. But I do know that we did okay. But my parents taught us that all of their children, they want all their children to get a college education and work hard and get good jobs. So all my siblings did that. God blessed us. None of us been in jail and all that. And most all of us are alive today except one. And she lived to be 48. Well, we are that fourth generation where we have worked now because we had good jobs, we had great titles, and so we did a little bit better in the job market than my great grandfather did. We did a little bit better in the job market than my grandfather did. We did a little bit better in the job market than my father did. But let's look at something else. I want to talk about a company, and I don't want to put names out here, but you can go look them up. And I can tell you this right here. My mother and father both had gifts. They had $1 million gifts. But even though they went to church all their life, I never heard them talk about this. The Bible says God gave us gifts and talents that will make room for us at the top. Will take us all the way to the top. My mother made all the jellies and jams we ate. I never remember eating any store-bought jellies or jam until I went in the military. And when I went in the military and was eating in what they call a mess hall in the army, they had little jellies and jams and little packs that we would eat there, and they had a name on them. I'm not gonna put their name out here on this social media and on this video, but they were making jellies and jams. So somebody started that company and ran that company. I'm gonna just say they ran it for 40 years. Now, what happened to that when they ran that company for 40 years? They had a company they passed on to the second generation. Now, the Bible says there's a way that seems right to a man. It seemed right for us to get good education, get good job. But this other family started making jellies and jam. And so when it came to their second generation, the Bible says in Proverbs 13:22, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. Well, all I know is what my father and mother left us. And I know their parents didn't leave them very much because they didn't have very much to do. So now this other company that I'm talking about, again, I won't put their name out here, they left an inheritance. So their children got a company. So now they ran, let's say they ran second generation, another 40 years. We 80 years in. That's my grandfather and my great grandfather. That's 80 years. The third generation would be my father. The third generation of them, the Bible says, the blessing of the Lord maketh rich. So now, here's two families, 120 years into the deal. This family that has a business, that are passing on to the third generation. They didn't start at the bottom. Every one of the Currys started at the bottom because they had to start a job and work a job, and they could not pass it on to their children. So now, when we get here, this third generation, the blessing of the Lord has made one family mighty wealthy, and the next family is still starting over. We're going to go one more generation, the fourth generation, which is now my generation, in my example here. In my generation, what we did is we had jobs. All of my siblings got good jobs except me. I had a job in the military. I got a job in cable TV. I didn't think none of those were a good job. I wanted to get wealth. I kept looking for things to do. And in 1987, I started selling insurance for the first time. In 1988, I left my job with a wife and 3 children. And I've never worked another job since that, because God has blessed me to make leverage, residual, and multiple streams of income. And we have lived on all of those forms of income. We're great investors, and we live on passive income all these days. So this other family, in their fourth generation, the Bible says a man's gift makes room for him at the top. They are a well-known company that sells jellies, jams, and preserves. Most of you probably got some of their jellies, jams, and preserves in your household now. Again, I'm not going to put their name out here. I'm not authorized to do that. But I do know that I have some of their jellies, jams, and preserves in my house, because my mother is no longer alive. And even when she was, her last few years, she quit making them. And we didn't have the opportunity for anyone else to take over that business. But had my mother understood that, she had $1 billion business. She just did not know how to monetize it. My father had $1 billion business. There are builders out here all over who are building. My father asked me one day, Alvin, why you didn't want to be a brick mason? I said, you always don't want no money. And dude, you know I wanted some money. Everybody in my family knows. Alvin wanted some money. From the time he was a little boy, all his life he wanted to get wealthy. I didn't know how to express that, but I knew I wanted to be wealthy. So my father had $1 billion business. He didn't know how to do it. My grandfather, he was a butcher. He had $1 billion business. How do I know this? Because you can go to the store today and buy pork sausages. My grandfather made them and sold them. He bought them all he could make. They bought his smoked ham. All he could make, he was a butcher. All he could sell. But he was a one generation because he did not know how to monetize it. So if you have business ideas, you don't know how to monetize it, we love to collaborate with you here at myEcon. You can reach out to me at trustalvincurry.com, or you can reach me on my LinkedIn, trustalvincurry.me. And I'll be happy to have a conversation with you. Let's talk. You don't have to change what you're doing, but let's just have a conversation. If you still believe that you can be wealthy, if you still would like to be wealthy, I would like to have a conversation with you. Let's talk. We are blessed to be a blessing. Thank you for joining me here. I choose myEcon.